Kekadde kennyini NTV Akawungeezi etabyenga maaso atamanyi liiso bwe liruma anyiga mu lya mmindi mujebale banywanyi enjuba kekiridde wakiwalabye okulya ebiwata naffe tuteredde muzaamugula twogera ebigambo katufune emitwe emikulu okusooka. Abavubuka mu Kampala batabuserwa ssente za Youth Fund, poliisi bagombolodde na tiya gaasi. Tiya gaasi jinja. Poliisi etabukidde abavubuka ababadde bamenya amayumba.
Uganda since 1 billion for innovation of markets cannot be accounted for.
Twagala mbalirira. Lukwaga atabukidde musisi ku mbalirira y'omwaka gw'ebyensimbi oguggwako.
Yeah, the players are fine. Good mood, good spirit.
Omutendesi wa Cranes agumiza bannayuganda kugwa Congo Brazzaville. Eriemu yennyini nkwaniriza nate eno ye NTV Akawungeezi. Abavubuka mu Kampala abakoye okujjukiza gavumenti ku bya ssente z'okwekulaakulanya eza Youth Fund, gavumenti eno ze yasuubiza mu mwaka gw'ebyensimbi oguggwako olunaku olw'enkya. Mu biseera awo ebyakalasa mayanza abavubuka abakuŋŋaanye ne basalawo balumbe aba KCCA bababuulira aterese ssente zino ze basomako obusomi mu mawulire. Poliisi yezoobye na bano n'etuuka n'okubakubamu omukka ogubalagala naye ng'abavubuka balemeddeko. Era abatuuse okuva ku KCCA nga waliwo abakulu abasoose okwogerako nabo. Jjukira nti omwaka ogwedde gavumenti yayisa obuwumbi bwa ssente 25 ssente zino ziyambeko mu nteekateeka y'okukulaakulanya abavubuka mu Uganda.
Abavubuka bano wansi w'ekibiina kye bayise the Unemployed Forum bakungaanidde ku Bat Valley we bavudde okulumba aba KCCA nga bagamba nti babakandaliriza nnyo ku ssente gavumenti ze yabawa.
If that fund is not dispatched tonight, we know many people, big shots in the government are going to embezzle this fund. So if it is not released today, if we don't demand it today, which will never be.
Nga bakulembeddwamu ssentebe waabwe mu Kampala Tony Batenda batandise okutambula nga boolekera City Hall. Mu ngeri y'okubaziyiza okweyongerayo, poliisi yagadde okukwata Batenda kyokka abavubuka ne bagiremesa era beezoobye okutuusa lwe bagisinzizza amaanyi ne beeyongerayo. Poliisi ezzeemu n'ebayimiriza ng'eyagala beerondemu abakiise abayinza okutuusa okwemulugunya kwabwe eri KCCA. Kino wabula bakigaanye ne batuula mu luguudo wakati ekijja poliisi mu mbeera n'ebagugumbulula. Ekutta abavubuka baabwe ne batwala kyokka tekimaze bavubuka bano maanyi ne batambula okutuuka ku KCCA kyokka basanze aduumira poliisi mu Kampala Ruhweza aggaddewo. Bammeeya ba Kampala ab'enjawulo ababadde baliko bye bawayamu babiyimiriza okukakkanya abavubuka bano. Kino wabula tekibadde kyangu kubanga bangi ku bo babadde basibiddwa ebweru. Okujjako omubaka w'amasekati ga Kampala Muhammad Nsereko kwongedde okuwaga abavubuka ekiwaliriza poliisi okubafuuyira amazzi agabalagala. Bongedde okutabuka munnaabwe omu bwakubiddwa ku mutwe ne bambalira DPC Ruhweza okutuusa omubaka Nsereko olwabakakkanyiza. Oluvannyuma abakulu mu KCCA, poliisi n'omubaka Nsereko bayingidde munda okuteesa ekiddirira. Nga bwe balindirira ebigenda okuva mu kafuba ako, abavubuka bagudde ekiyifuyifu ku mmere ebadde ereeteddwa abasirikale abakuuma ku City Hall yonna ne bagibalyako.
Ssente za Youth Fund zivuddemu ebyo abavubuka babadde beekubira enduulu mu ngeri eyo. Mu kugenda maaso era waliwo abavubuka ejjinja eyo poliisi beekubyemu omukka ogubalagala mu bitundu bye Walukuba. Bano babadde bagezaako okumenya ebizimbe ebimu mu kitundu ekyo. Entawe evudde ku buyinza mu munisipaali y'Ejjinja okukoona ebizimbe 6 bibadde bitandise okuzimbibwa nga bagamba nti tebiri mu mateeka.
Ekisinza okuleetawo embeera eno beeba obuyinza mu kitundu kino nga bayambibwako obukuumi okuva eri poliisi okugendera ku biragiro bya Town Clerk Francis Balanawe bwe batyo ne bakoonakona ebizimbe by'abavubuka bano bye babadde bali mu kuzimba. Kigambibwa nti Town Clerk azze yeemulugunya ku bizimbe bino okubanga bizimbibwa mu ttaka lya kanso awatali kufuna lukusa.
N'atuwandika n'atusabanga poliisi nti agenda kujja kubagobawo kubamenyawo naye enforcement officers balina bayinza obutamuyamba bulungi, so n'asaba poliisi ebikola engakola ki ng'emuyamba.
Abantu jjo baze ne basalamu okuzimba ekifo kyonna ne bazimba ekiro ate tumanyi nga kigendebwa kye balina. So lwali ntusalamu ntugamba bino ebizimbe tubimenyeko biveewo tutegereze ripooti buli ripooti bw'eneeba evaamu bwekyebali tolegera tuyite developers tubabulire engero gye tuyinza okutwalamu ebintu nga alipoota bweragira.
Wabula ekikolwa kino abamu bakitutte okubanga si kya bwenkanya era okukakana ng'obusungu babumalidde ku nnyumba ezibadde ziriraanyeewo era nga zagwadde okuzimbwa.
Ekintu kino bakyalemu ki embeera eya fitina n'enkwe okusinza municipal council bwetambula. Ife embeera gye tulimu olwaleero ssaawa eno tulobye okuyikiriza okuba nti idame ku da foundation doka tuteeka okumenya enumba ddala nga tuliko emirimu ya asatawunikira mwami wa Dube etali ku plan.
It is good they have started it. Buli kizimbe kiri ligo then kirina okugwa kuki kwitaka.
Kyokka wadde nga bano bakubiddwamu omukka ogubalagala n'abamu ne bakwatibwa batiisizza ogenda mu maaso n'ekikolwa kino singa ebizimbe byabwe tebiddizibwawo.
NTV Akawungeezi. Olukiiko lwa Kampala Capital City Authority luyiise oluvannyuma lw'akulira ekibuga Jennifer Musisi okulemererwa okulaga alipoota ennyonnyola emirimu egikoleddwa mu mwaka gw'ebyensimbi oguggwako enkya. Musisi yategeeza nti ya alipoota eno abakugu tebannagimaliriza. Lord Mayor Lukwago alemeddeko ng'agamba nti tewali kiyinza okuteesebwako. Olwo Musisi n'asaba aweebwe okutuuka nga 18 omwezi guno ayanjula alipoota.
Olukiiko luno lwasoose kuyimirira okumala eddakiika 2 nga Lukwago agamba tayinza kulutandika nga Nankulu Musisi tanalabikako kubanga ensonga ezisinga zitambulira ku ye. Omwaka gw'ebyensimbi guno bukyanga gutandika olukiiko lwa KCCA lubadde lujja luyiika nga kiva ku butakkaanya wakati wa Lukwago ne Jennifer Musisi saako ne bakansala. N'olwaleero Lord Mayor wa Kampala Elias Lukwago yayise olukiiko luno ng'ayagala Nankulu w'ekibuga abeeko ensonga za nnyonnyola naddala ku nteekateeka ezigenda mu maaso ng'olukiiko lwa Lukwago terulina kye lumanyi. Musisi obwedde agezaako okwebalama ensonga eno ng'agamba nti waakuwa alipoota eno ng'omwezi guno guweddeko. Kyokka oluvannyuma apondoose n'akkiriza okuwa alipoota eno ku bbalaza ya Sabbiiti ejja.
Authority should streamline the budget process as a matter of urgency before debating or passing the new budget. We propose that this be item number 1 on the order paper.
The annual performance report, as it's being requested for, can only be produced at the end of the financial year, which is 30th of June, because we'll then be able to show all the accounts of the authority and the performance against the different votes.
It is against that background, honorable members, that the business committee deemed it imperative for the executive director to present to the authority the annual performance report, clearly highlighting the balance sheet for the financial year ending.
The consolidated reports for the first 3 quarters on the 18th, together with the performance report.
Bw'atyo Lukwago asazeewo okuyimiriza olukiiko luno okutuusa alipoota y'ebyensimbi lw'enaasomwa.
Kaakati obumbi obusukka mu 2 nga budget ya KCC gye twaddira mu bigere yali teweza na buwumbi 5. Naye ne tusangawo ko ku nguudo, n'osangawo ko ku malwaliro, n'osangawo ko nga balina kye bakozeeko. Kakati ffe budget ensimbi eziwera obuwumbi 200,000 saawa yeno tufune balance sheet. Esaawa eno yakwogera na figures.
Bameeya b'amagombolola babadde bazze okwetaba mu lukiiko luno bagamba nti emirimu gyabwe gizingamye olw'obuyinza obungi eri abakulu mu KCCA.
The ED said she'll come back on the 18th with as much as possible a roundup of this financial year, because we go on to planning for the next financial year very fast indeed. But there is some structural gaps, I must say. We would all agree on that.
Tusuubira okulaba ebinaavaamu naffe tulina essuubi ery'amaanyi nga divisions osanga kinaatuyambako okunyweza ensonga ya divisions kubanga emirimu gyonna gikolera mu divisions.
Nti abantu abatulonda abeetaaga services tusuubira nti buli muntu yenna bambi ateekemu omutima ogwagaliza Kampala.
Ng'omwaka gw'ebyensimbi guno tegunnaba kuggwako bakansala balina okwekenneenya embalirira y'omwaka guno nga tebannayisa mbalirira ya mwaka gujja wabula ng'ebbanga lisigaddeyo ttono naddala mu kiseera kino nga waliwo okusikaŋŋana omuguwa. Dini Lubowa Sava, NTV Akawungeezi.
NTV Akawungeezi. Okubala obululu mu municipali ye Bushenyi mu bitundu by'Ishaka kugenda maaso mu kiseera kino. Okulonda kwatandise ku ssaawa emu era kuwedde ku ssaawa 11. Okutwalizaamu okulonda kuno kutambudde bulungi okusinziira ku bantu baffe abali eruddeeyo.
zigenze okuwera ssaawa emu ey'okumakya ng'ebifo ebisinga obungi bimaze okufuna ebikozesebwa byonna. Okulonda kutandise essaawa emu okwetoolola munisipaali yonna era ng'ebifo 33 bye bikubiddwamu obululu. Embiranye eri wakati wamu na FDC Oddo Tayeebwa ng'ono alondedde ku polling station ya Fort Jesus so ng'ate Nassabasajja Balaba wa NRM alondedde ku Basajja Balaba Primary School.
Olwaleero tugenda kujaguja enkya tulina mbaga kubanga ngenda kuwininga with a high percent.
Tukoze kyonna ekisoboka era tusuubira obuwagizi tubuyina era nina obwesige bunene nnyo nti tujja kuwangula.
Wabula ng'okulonda tekunnabaawo waliwo omu ku bawagizi ba Oddo Tayeebwa owa FDC akubiddwa n'alumizibwa bya nsusso era nga kati ali mu ddwaliro ajjanjabibwa.
Tukyamunoonyeza kubanga bagamba nti yabadde asomba abantu okubaleeta mu wano mu municipality okulonda oba okuleeta fujo.
Motoka ye mwabadde atambulira eyonooneddwa era nga kati ekumirwa ku poliisi e Bushenyi. Kyokka era wabaddewo akacyankalano mu bawagizi ba FDC n'aba NRM oluvannyuma lw'omukazi ateeberezebwa okuba nti muna NRM ng'agambibwa okuba nti aliko obululu bw'abadde akukusa.
So she spent there some time. So after spending there some time, then people say that maybe she had other
Poliisi eyiriddwa mu bwangu okuziyiza abantu bano okulwanagana era ng'oluvannyuma embeerezze mu nteeko. Ebyokwerinda byo bibadde gulugulu okwetoola munisipaali yonna era nga ssenkulu wa poliisi Lieutenant General Kale Kihula asibye atambuza bigere nga bw'alawuna ebigenda mu maaso.
Kimanyikiddwa nti bwe kituuka essaawa eziteeza okubala kalulu bangi ku balonzi bava mu mbeera ekibibaviirako okulwanagana. Wabula ku luno poliisi egamba nti si yakkiriza mbeera eno kusajjuka era y'ensonga lwaki eye abasajja bayo abampi n'abawanvu okuziyiza embeera eno okugwawo mu kitundu kino eky'Ebushenyi Shaka okubala obululu gye kutandise. Julius Senkandwa, NTV wano Ebushenyi Shaka.
NTV Akawungeezi ziri 13 eziyise ku ssaawa emu tukomawo n'ekitundu ekyokubiri beera naffe. Bajeti esomwa nkya bannayuganda boogedde bye baagala biteekebweko omulaka. Okulungamya ebyamafuta Paalamenti eyagala ebeere n'obuyinza obulondoola.
This is NTV. 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 NTV. This is 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 NTV.
Akawungeezi katugende maaso. Kooti ewulira emisango gy'enguzi n'obukenuzi ekyagenda maaso n'okulira emisango gy'okubba ssente, okujenga ebiwandiiko n'okozesa obubi woofiisi egivunaanibwa Jim Muhwezi, Mike Mukula ne Dr. Alex Kamugisha. Bano basatu baali baminisita ba byabulamu era kigambibwa nti baanyaga obukadde 1,600 ezaali ez'okugema abaana era ssente zino zaabula mu ngeri etamanyika bulungi. Olwaleero yali omuwandiisi w'enkalakalira mu minisitule by'obulamu Muhammad Kezaala y'omu ku bawadde obujulizi.
Okusinziira ku Muhammad Kezaala, abaali ba minisita Muhwezi, Mukula ne Kamugisha, ssente zonna ze baakozesanga wakati wa 2022 ne 2026 bazijjangayo mu butuufu. Agamba nti tajjukira lunaku lwe wavaayo kiwandiiko kiraga nti abakulu bano banyaga ssente za gavi ezaali ez'okugema abaana. Kezaala ye yali omuwandiisi w'enkalakkalira mu minisitule y'ebyobulamu mu kiseera ekyo. Agamba nti ye yali mu mitambo gya ssente zonna ez'okugema abaana eza gavi n'ez'okujjanjaba abalwadde ba siriimu. Kigambibwa nti Muhwezi ne banne babba obukadde bwa siringi za Uganda obusoba mu 1,600 ku ssente zino. Ye munnaabwe Alice Kaboyo eyabadde ku misango gino yagikkiriza era n'aliwa obukadde 2. Kaboyo yali yazaayo obukadde 205. Emabegako Mukula naye yazaayo obukadde 241 n'abakulu abalala abakolanga mu minisitule y'ebyobulamu. Encha looya wa Kalisoliiso asuubira okumaliriza okuleeta obujulizi obulumiriza abantu bano olwo kkooti esalewo oba kyetaagisa Muhwezi ne banne okwewozaako.
Weewaawo enkya buno agenda okuwungeera nga tutegedde bajeti y'omwaka gw'ebyensimbi 2012-2013 bweri. Minisita Maria Kiwanuka ajja kugisomera eggwanga naye nga bulijjo buli bajeti lwetuuka bannansi babaako ebintu bye baagala gavumenti ekoleko. Linda olabe abamu ku bannakampala bye balowooza ku bajeti ey'enkya.
Twagivaako tukola mirimu gyaffe. Abamu bajeti tugitegeera tumanyi nti basoma bajeti ebintu ebimu biba bikendedde ebirala ne babyongeza okiwulira. Naye katoyinza okwesanga bajeti ne basoma sukaali nga wa 2,000 ate okeera enkya ng'ate agula 5,000 ba 3. Kitegeeza nti omuntu wa wansi batekuyamba teyina makulu.
Nze nasomera ku ssente za mwanyi kusoma kwange. Naye taata wange yabeeranga yeesunga nnyo okuwulira bajeti. Olw'ensonga yalinga alina kyajagalamu ng'era alina kyagifunamu. Nti emwanyi basomanga bajeti, emwanyi neeberanga buli mwaka ekola ki? Buli mwaka erinnya. Kati nga kitegeeza nti omulimi aba yeesunga nnyo bajeti eseetuuba esomwa ddi awulire ekyalimye kigenda kutundibwa ssente mmeka era kiri ku level ki. Kati so olwaleero ebintu ebikyalina mulamu emwanyi zaafa, buli kimu kyafa, ate n'obuliwo bwennyini nabo tewali katale.
Mu bajeti y'enkya teri kikulu nnyo kye twesuubira okuggyako bajeti batuukiriza kabonero kulaga bulaga nti kino kye kiriwo mu nsi.
Ezimu ku ndowooza z'Abannakampala ku bajeti ey'enkya. Ababaka abaagala Paalamenti eweebwe obuyinza mu tteeka ku mafuta erijja okusobola okulondoola ensaasaanya n'enzirukanya ebikwata ku mafuta okutwaliza wamu. Akakiiko akavunaanyizibwa ku bugagga obw'ensibo kagenda kuteeka bino mu bbago ly'etteeka ku mafuta.
Wetwogereranga ebbago eriri mu kwekenneenyezebwa Paalamenti liwa obuyinza bungi eri minisita okulondoola amafuta ga Uganda. Okusinziira ku ssemateeka w'eggwanga, abakiise b'abantu balina okulondoola ensaasaanya ya ssente za gavumenti. Wabula mu bbago ly'amafuta, abakiise ly'abasuula bbali nga kati baagala liteekebwemu obuwaayiro obubawo obuyinza okulondoola ensaasaanya wamu n'enzirukanya y'amafuta wamu n'okuyisa abakungu abagenda okuddukanya ebitongole ebiddukanya amafuta ga Uganda. Baagala Pulezidenti Museveni abaabalonda Paalamenti ebayise.
Of course ekirowoozo ekimu kyaliwo nti minisita yaba akola ki yaba abeera n'obuyinza okuteekawo akakiiko akalabirira ebyamafuta Petroleum Authority. Ekirala nti President lwaki naye President bw'aba akikole nga Paalamenti naye yenyigiddemu.
Abakera baganye okukkiriza bannayuganda okubanga bagula emigabo mu kampuni y'amafuta.
Kampani eyo abannayuganda nabo bajja kuweebwa omukisa nga emaze okutandikibwawo. Toyinza obutereevu bwoti n'ogamba nti banange mujje bannayuganda mujje tutandikewo kampani.
Olunaku lw'eggulo ababaka be bamu baleese ekiteeso nti wateekebwewo amateeka amakakali naddala ku nsonga z'amafuta nti omuntu yenna anaasangibwa nga yeenyigidde mu kulya enguzi asibwe mayisa oba awanikibwe ekkalabba.
Era omuntu oyo nze nkiwagira bamusibe mayisa oba wabeerewo etteeka nga tuliyisizza omuntu oyo agende ku kalabba. Kubanga corruption weetuuse embeera ze tulimu madagala gabula mu madwaliro corruption. Ebizimbe ebibi bye tuzimba ne bigwa mu dakiika budakiika ebeera corruption.
Bandibadde baweebwa n'ekibonero kya kuteekebwa kalabba kubanga tetulina ngeri yonna gye tuyinza kulwanyisa buli bwanguzi mu Uganda wano okuggyako nga tutaddewo ebibonereza ebikakali oba oliawo binaatiisa abalala.
Jingo Francis, NTV Akawungeezi.
Otyo NTV Akawungeezi. Twagala kati kulaba akatale k'ensimbi nga bwe kabadde wano e Kampala olwaleero. Webiggweredde ebyo nga eddakiika ziri 23 eziyise ku ssaawa y'emu. Tukomawo n'ekitundu eky'ebyemizannyo. Tujja kubuulira lwaki omuzannyi wa Cranes Mutumba azzeeyo Sweden. Linda olabe.
This is NTV. 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 Sports with Guinness.
Katugende maaso n'ebyemizannyo. Omuzannyi wa Cranes Martin Mutumba yazzeeyo e Sweden. Mutumba ono yafuna buvune ku Lwomukaaga Uganda Cranes bwe yali ezannya ne Senegal e Nambole. Cranes egenda maaso n'okutendekebwa nga yeetegekera Congo Brazzaville mu z'okusunsulamu abaneetaba mu kikopo kya Africa.
Martin Mutumba asitudde ku makya ga leero naddayo mu Sweden oluvannyuma lw'okufuna obuvune mu kisambi nga Uganda Cranes esamba ne Senegal ku Lwomukaaga oluwedde. Kino kiddiridde omuzannyo ono okutegeezebwa nti tajja kusobola kusamba mupiira gwa ku Lwomukaaga olw'obuvune buno. Wabula bo banne bagenze mu maaso n'okutendekebwa mu kisaawe Nambole nga beetegekera Congo Brazzaville gye bagenda okusamba nayo mu kisaawe Nambole. Uganda yawangulwa mu mupiira ogwasooka e Congo naye nga kino tekimazeemu omutendesi Bob Williamson amaanyi.
But I expect that. I don't expect everybody to play in their top form. If they do, that's fantastic. But as I said, I'm a coach. I'll analyse the game as it goes on, and I'll make changes accordingly to hopefully disrupt the opposition. And that's what we've had to do in the previous two games. We've been behind in both these games. We can't afford to do that on Saturday. Obviously, we want to keep a clean sheet.
Zo tiketi z'omupiira zikyatundibwa mu Kampala ku mutwalo gumu n'emitwalo 3.
This is NTV.
Ebyemizannyo nabyo weebityo weebigenze bye bimaliriza NTV Akawungeezi. Munywanyi yangambye nti yentebereza y'obudde njireke lwa nsonga ya ddakiika ezitudduseeko tetukyayinza kuzikwata. Enkya bagenda kutusomera budget tuwulire omwaka gw'ebyensimbi oguddako bwe gunaatambula. Bajja gutukubiramu ttooki. N'olwekyo tova ku NTV tujja kuba tubiraga byonna mu bujjuvu olunaku olw'enkya. Amawulire amalala gajja kujja ku ssaawa 3 ne ssaawa 5. Olwaleero nedda ssaawa 5 kyekyo kituufu kye ŋŋambye. Kaakati eddakiika ke ziweze zino 28 ezisse ku ssaawa emu sijja kusukkawo awo nja kuba neefudde nalwefuula nga nawolovu omulemeezi kuba kwejeeguula kwennyini ng'enswa eyeyambula engoye nga tennatuuka gyeraga. Banywanyi musule bulungi.
This is NTV. is NTV.
Today on Showcase Uganda, we turn our sights to the northern part of the country, and our travels will culminate in Arua district. Historically, Arua district was originally part of the then West Nile district comprised of Arua itself, Nebi, and Yumbe districts. Arua district borders the districts of Yumbe in the northeast, Adjumani in the east, Nebi in the south, Sudan in the north, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. It is the first time for Showcase Uganda to take the Bombo Road, which is also known as the Arua Pakwach Road. As we travel through Masindi district, we're enthralled by the vast plains which stretch as far as the eye can see. We're once more filled with wonder at the unique diversity of Uganda's topography. The road between Bombo and Kafu River is both rough and bumpy, as there are constructions along this part of the route. However, travelers needn't worry, as this changes shortly. Our first stopping point is at the Kafu River. As we stand by the bridge, we're impressed by the splendid river. For travelers traversing this region, culinary delights common at this spot are the delicious soft-roasted cassava, goat, and beef, amongst others. Besides the food at hand, this point also marks a cultural launch of what to expect from the region, as the people are all warm and welcoming. We take to the road again, and after a while, we drive into the rural Bweyale township, shops. We're immediately struck by the vast amount of cassava being packed, an indicator to the region's main agricultural food crop. It is also reflective of the region's climate and soils, which favor the growing of cassava. After driving 247 kilometers from Kampala, we arrive at Karuma Falls. According to popular folklore, the name Karuma Falls rose from a belief that Karuma, the agent of a certain great spirit, placed the stones that break the waters in the river. For so doing, he was applauded by his masters, who, to reward his services by an appropriate distinction, allowed the stones to be called Karuma. These dazzling falls are quite a landmark. Historically, British explorer John Speke passed by the falls on his way to locate the source of the Nile. It is quite redeeming and pride-invoking to find an outstanding landmark which has not been named after a British royal or explorer. From here, the sprays of the white water run towards Sudan, where the White Nile merges with the Blue Nile. Not too far in the recent past, these falls mark the boundary between safety and danger, as the infamous LRA made this part of the highway insecure. As we enter the final stage of our journey along the silky smooth road which crosses the spectacular falls, lovely green scenery comprising a natural habitat of flora and fauna punctuates our cruise. Lively are the enchanting baboons along the road. They frolic beside the road with their young ones, enjoying the natural wonders this spot offers. Meters from our destination, we pass through the awesome walls of the Arua Pakwach Bridge. Quite a giddying experience. Finally, we enter Arua town. When Showcase Uganda returns, we experience the unique culture of the Lubara. On arrival, the only thing on our minds is to find lodging because it's late and we're tired. It's a 3-kilometer drive off Arua town to our destination, White Castle Cottages, where we intend to spend the night. The hotel is a comfortable place to unwind as it offers self-contained rooms, each with satellite TV facilities. The establishment also boasts conference rooms and a swimming pool. We check in and then retire for the night. At daybreak, we decide to make an early start. Breakfast is served. As we enjoy our first bite of the day, we're fired up with anticipation of a fruitful day ahead of us, promising to unveil various mysteries behind these acclaimed stalwart Ugandans. Our first visit is to a commercial center of the district. The total land area of Arua district is 5,419 square kilometers, of which 5,208 square kilometers is arable land and the rest wetland. This part of the country can be accessed by both road and air. The district has a functioning airfield that handles most of the flights to the region. The journey by air on average takes 40 to 45 minutes from Entebbe and will cost you about 380,000 shillings. The Civil Aviation Authority has designated the airfield an international point of entry and exit. On a normal day, there are 2 flights. Travelers intending to travel by road to the region are advised to use Arua Pakwach Road. By bus, the fare to the district is between 20,000 to 25,000 shillings. The journey is a 5 to 6 hour drive, depending on your speed, and the bonus is that the tarmac road is generally smooth. According to the provisional results of the 2002 National Population and Housing Census, the district has a total of 855,055 people, with 445,852 females against 409,203 males. As we enter Arua town, we're astonished at the onslaught of cyclists. Both men and women, young or old, participate in this activity, displaying all In fact, just like the case in Jinja, bicycles are a major means of transport this town has to offer. The phenomenon resembles a Tour de France in action. Arua is home to former President of Uganda, the late Idi Amin Dada, who ruled the country from 1971 to 1979. Life in this town is a hectic mix as the district is home to a diverse ethnic grouping. Prominent among them are the Lubara. Others include the Alur, Mahdi, Arabs, Lendu, and Sudanic groups. The society is multilingual with its diverse people coexisting peacefully. Nestled within this town is Arua Market. It's an organized market for both food crops produced in this area and other domestic commodities. Like many districts of Uganda, the economy of Arua district is dependent on agriculture. Because of the fertile soils in this region, food crops like beans, maize, sorghum, millet, groundnuts, peas, and different fruits are commonly grown. Early in the day, and we stand by our plan, which is showcase Uganda spending a day with the major tribe in the region, the Lubara. Like in most African families, extended families are very common here. And because of the unbearable heat, most homesteads here are mud and grass thatched. Here, generations live together in a few huts surrounding each other, either on the same compound or spreading out within the clan land segment. According to this tribe, kinships are comprised of the husband, wife or wives, children, uncles, aunties, cousins, grandparents, and grandchildren. Since agriculture is the backbone of the economy of the district, over 90% of the households depend on subsistence farming as their major source of income. On a normal day, just like in most rural African homes, women who are the most employed in this sector will wake up early and go to the garden. Wives and wives of relatives gather for communal sharing like this, which is on a rotational basis. Used are rudimentary, like hoes and the famed kokoro. The main food crops here include cassava, beans, simsim, sorghum, millet, and peanuts. Cash crops grown in the region include tobacco and coffee. There are 2 harvesting seasons for coffee annually. Harvesting, or coffee picking, is done mostly by the women, as well as the drying, while the men play their part in selling the coffee. A kilo of coffee goes for 2,500 shillings, depending on how the season has gone. Later in the day, at around 1 to 2 p.m., they'll return home with what has been harvested. This time, it's beans. The beans are first dried in the sun to make the covers brittle. After that, they're thrashed to remove the covers. Winnowing is then done to get rid of all the impurities, and the beans are then ready for storing and cooking. Next on Showcase Uganda, we enjoy one aspect of Uganda's culture that is still treasured by both natives and visitors to the country. After a long day out in the fields, we have to invigorate ourselves with enyasa. Enyasa is a traditional local food here. It is a mixture of either sorghum or millet flour with cassava, similar to what is known as akaro, amongst other Ugandans. Usually, this local food is taken with a local sauce or chakucha, which is a mixture of simsim paste with peas or beans. Next, we prepare for the most exciting part of our culture, the dance. The first phase is makeup. The dancers get ready by taking a mixture of simsim and jelly and decorating the upper parts of their bodies. Our expectations are running high as we get ready to savor the Lubara dances. This particular dance, which is a courtship dance, reflects the transition from the dance movements of the Lubara to those of their neighbors, the Congo style of dancing. Agwara is a dance from the Lubara and Kebu people in the West Nile. dance got its name from the aguaras, the local trumpets. The men play these horns as the women dance. After such a rewarding culmination of the day's events, we retire, ready to take on the next day's adventures in the Nile region.
This is NTV.
Combination here, y'all. Feel it. The revolution will be televised. Feel me?
Come on. She with shampoos a lot. Several mornings she shampoos my locks. Always have my back, she stand true to that. Real type of loving, thank you for that. Yo, run barefoot without no shoes and socks. Cause she keep herself clean, man, I got catch no rush. And she love me for real, man, I feel have no cash. And any little thing and from a splish, she splash. Yo, all this blinging is like you forgot. Use cheddar as the bait, then you recruit the rat. So we listen couple speech of Martin Luther chat. Dennis Brown, Bob Marley and some super cats. Yo, it seem like she live upside the Duke shop. Cause she don't have a scratch, it's only beauty spot. When one duty start is when one duty duty stop. 1 9 to 5, 1 5 to 12 o'clock. You see me?
This is NTV.
In this week's episode of Who We Are, we travel to the eastern region of Teso, Soroti district. The district borders Kamuli, Lake Kyoga, Kumi and Palisa in the south, Kaberamaido in the west and Katakwi in the northeast. Both Kaberamaido and Katakwi districts were recently carved out of Soroti. Formerly part of the larger Teso district comprising of present-day Kumi, Soroti, Kaberamaido and Katakwi, the history of Soroti dates back as early as 1904 when the colonial administration sent Semeka Kunglu, a governor, to set up administrative posts in Serere, Gweri and Soroti. Part of Kakunglu's team camped near Soroti Rock where they forced the locals to clear the land, and within a few years a large area had been cleared and a considerably large settlement had been established. In 1912, Soroti became the headquarters of Teso region following a recommendation by Sir Frederick Jackson, who had been appointed governor of Uganda. Soroti district ethnicity mainly comprises of the Itasot and Kumam, who speak Ateso and Kumam respectively. Traditionally, other tribes have coexisted with the Itasot, including Bantu speakers like Baganda, Bakenyi and Bahima cattle keepers. These people are often referred to as Plains Nilots. In Uganda, they constitute of the Lango group, which includes Karamajong, the Itasot, the Langi, the Kumam and the Kakwa. Their origins can be traced to the northeast, probably the Kafur region of Ethiopia. During their migrations, the whole group is said to have first settled in Karamoja, from where they moved south to occupy Teso, Lango and Kumam. Some of them, like the Langi, lost their original language and some culture traits due to external influences. The cultural leader of the Iteso presently is Imor Mor Augustine Osuban, who was elected by the people of Teso basing solely on his character and socialization with the people. So the succession to the throne of the Imor Mor is not hereditary at all. The lives of the Teso, their survival, their hopes, aspirations and fears have been shaped by their environment. Men and women somewhat have different responsibilities and roles. The women take care of a home, the children, and also prepare food for the family. The men, on the other hand, engage in more energy-draining activities like plowing the fields, fishing, grazing cattle, and so on. Here in Soroti, in a village called Obule, we meet Margaret Atero, a housewife and mother of 7. Her daily work routine is a reflection of many women living in sub-Saharan Africa.
Elosite ainakini berenge dua piarere dilte kusa somero dando ka piarere na yare kini nyonda ngoda misiri bonguno misiri moy kini due nyamata dikernete san kanyare tupakini janbo ngabongo kina lunyo kinyamta bere bobolo apara ne penen jembere sure bonguneti dwe bobo lo abongo jamti ka dwe ruwa nauni angene parati angene para.
Even though Margaret's day may seem a busy one, there is still a lot more she does to be able to run her home and educate her children.
Epolo pedoro na mana ngasaswa me waragi keda dakai adakai renga gulari chepake irwanare esabiti ewaragi da mena ngagulare chepake tirua nauni ejok konya dero no chat do waila nipanenda waila kor noi kori se nyama tangun doy burung pun bir mina bosa gawna ko nay agwelanar ay muro ay waragi gwelara dakai msimina gwelara ko manguna gwelar ray burung pengun mina say muro do swama gwelanar si dumuna beram da diwe atama. Pon la maniango jako do ngaji auto chalo adatra ka lupoko akore ka mongo kori ka boro kapani ka birnyanyi je jangina raikina ka boret jako do ngai bo chalo do de chati dwedo nyonete munye sikote zelo steta konye ngamo jo ngasela kino chalo.
Ajono is a local brew originating and famous in Teso. This is a very popular business women engage in. Alisa Kello is roasting Arua to make Ajono, and she tells us what ingredients she uses for making the brew.
Losio sokoni, losio antidari je pole ponatara kuma idomo ja kumo sodi ja gol pimay jo kopoy idaje pimaw ni kopoy olosi jo ayaw nore yaw jore sodi ja garay koror idaje koror yangar jo chuma bon jangina kedai mor danja moru dan ni aparasha kanyera kanyeuni ukejo danu jaike ulwarijo akolong danja lo kina kolongo anto muna ikini jo abeseni aramuti dani ja muna ikini olo ikini osori ja aikone agwelari
achala bere
anti daw ja muna achala agwelari danja agwelari lotar di boro ngadai.
At Alice's bar, customers are there as early as 9 in the morning. One of the distinctive characters of this millet-based brew is that drinkers use straws to imbibe it from a common pot. The brew can also be taken in a cup. As long as it doesn't contain some kind of non-beer ingredient, Arjano is perfectly safe and in fact very nutritious. Some men sit all day in the bars and get completely bloated while the women work. Some others, however, engage in some gardening to prepare the fields for the planting season before retiring to a village bar in the evenings. The Teso are cattle keepers but are yet recovering from the ruins suffered during the insurgency and persistent cattle rustling by neighboring Karamojong. The animal population of the district has thus reduced to less than 90,000 heads of cattle. As a result, life has now changed in Teso. Though the Teso are cattle keepers, most of the population depends on farming to keep their granaries full and for income. The peasants use mainly the hand hoe or ox plows to cultivate the land. Most ox plows used are locally made from scrap metals. This is Mohammed. He earns a living by making ox plows, an activity he has engaged in for the last 8 years. It is a very manual process in which Mohammed has involved his entire family. This is Mohammed's son Ali, which rotates a fan built inside the barrel to blow the fire at the other end and light the charcoal. It requires heating metals to very high temperatures to the extent that they are red hot. The importance of heating to such extreme temperatures is to make the metal easier to bend or transform into. The actual plow is just assembled after making all the required spare parts.
Start by making one beams, first make beams, about 20 in a day, then other spare parts. Then set a day for assembling only. Must assemble, fabricate these other spares, then it just assemble in a day. After assembling, then you start. After fabricating, then you start assembling them.
Such strong Juakali plows have made tilling the earth a less straining affair.
I know that thing on the cute.
Though originally conducted by men as a result of the changing times and the responsibilities of the nuclear family, the women have also taken to fishing. They do this in swampy areas that are not too deep or far away from the shore. They use traditional baskets to scoop the fish out of the water while putting it in a container with a narrow opening to prevent it from jumping out. Fishing in such a place without protective gear raises new concerns of the deadly snakes. But this lady calmly tells us that they are not worried at all, as snakes can't stay in dirty water where they cannot see their prey clearly. The men, on the other hand, because of their daring nature, venture out deep into the lake to fish using nets. This is Opure landing site on Lake Kyoga. The lake is divided into 3 segments: the swamps, chiefly papyrus, which fringe the shoreline, the water less than 3 meters deep, which is covered with water lilies, and the open water deeper than 3 meters. By the time we arrive, some fishermen have just left the shore. We talked to Michael Epedu, the in charge of the landing site, about how the lake has benefited the residents of Opure.
Borai bodo bala ay ganyo na adume polo pa ingaren kin bon. Da swama ne jaine edit. Mama adume ne polo toma. Na ari sirigindo dumete keskere. Era nyamia to some duwe kena napia kapko. Esa swamse ne jas bon. Da adume to medit ja parasanu yeta na kinor. Mama raina duchu. Malegi anar no la pano pa ngonete. Ngesi dilar. Mama jinta amtara do ngesi polo ikini so ti alo mango. Atonu.
Michael helps us get a boat, and we are going to brave the water and venture out in the wake of the fishermen. All fishermen on Lake Kyoga practice exclusively artisan fishing.
Are you going far?
No. Yes, we are risking. But what is life without a few risks thrown in here and there? In about 30 minutes, we could not see any land. Talk about looking at death right in the face. On our way, we meet this fisherman in a small canoe rowing very fast, probably from one of the many landing sites on the lake. Pretty soon, we could see the 3 fishermen we have followed. They are pulling the net out of the water. It is a continuous process of throwing the net and pulling it out. While pulling the net out, their other colleague plunges this specially made stick into the water to scare the fish towards the net. At every covered area of the lake, the fishermen put a mark using this bundle of floating reeds. Indeed, the catch is very small and some fish is still young. And so the struggle to survive in the best way possible continues in Teso. The changing times demand a corresponding change in survival techniques, but this has not been forthcoming.
Se enge lipiti ne pola kere lipiti ngasa ge na pengo do na mamsi anyuti ina nuso ngasa inu se bualu ya bait Lwe juka kin sapugan. Aloka tasyo. Nara kwa nera anyu ticheni. Epoli donyu na jaboli los kinja aloka mame.
In fact, they need boats too. What is happening here is that this boat has 1 or 2 or more leakages, so water seeps through. It has to be scooped out time and again. The fishermen have to stay longer in order to return with a reasonable catch. So we turn around and head back to the shore. The lake plays a vital role in the lives of the people.
No inabwa munai muogo keda chok na dolta nyam. Boskito sunu ipo kutui akipi. Do kapukan lungunu la bwedo ana bodo akipi tingino muna. Ejiareto to mochianu pa aloko na pana.
Oh, jena tiene
Apart from destroying crops and property, the floods left behind a ghost trading center. Such are the effects of weather extremism that have also brought about hopelessness in all its forms. Any time of the day or the night, you will find men and women drinking alcohol. This is the village bar where Margaret meets with friends to talk about what the day has been like. That's it for this week. Until next week, good viewing.
This is NTV. This is NTV.
Welcome to this edition of the Art and Design Show. In the show tonight, we experience art through the eyes of a teenager. And pay tribute to the son of Africa and the legacy that he leaves behind. These and more stories coming up. Many a time we have featured art and experiences of grown-ups. Today we bring you art through the eyes of a teenager. At the recent art exhibition by the Rainbow International School at Afri Art Gallery, we got to see that art is not trained but guided.
It's a variety of work really, which is, you've got some abstracts, you've got some realism, and really a variety of media ranging from chalk pastels, you've got work from oil paint, watercolor, acrylic, pretty much name it. The particular theme is simple but nice. I think that's what I'd prefer to call it. Because I thought, let's first keep it something which is pleasing to the eye. Nothing too complicated and nothing very specific. The idea was that to the children, I told them, as far as I'm concerned, work which is presentable, and work which is good to see will be exhibited. So we're not very restrictive in what we're using.
But what does it take to teach art? This is what Jeremy tells us, the head of the Art and Design Department at the International School.
There's a certain positiveness that the children have and the enthusiasm. And that, I think that for me really summarizes what it means to the children. So for example, let's say in a week when you say, this week we're not going to be having art, you can actually see the children, they want their subject. They really enjoy coming to the classroom. They enjoy participating, and I think partly that's because there's variety, because there's something for everybody.
Art avails room for the children to use imagination and exploration as keys to creativity. It is the process of exploring and creating rather than the finished product that is most important for these young artists.
If you look and see what sort of work the children are producing at, let's say, year 13, which is just before they join the university, the work is very mature. It's first of all very mature, it's very individual, it's very creative. And I think that's because of the foundation that's set right from the beginning.
Creativity also focuses on the process of forming original ideas. In children, the aspect of creativity develops from their experiences with the process rather than concern for the finished product, although some have really created some amazing pieces.
This particular piece here is by one of our old students. She's called Rona Barugahari, who actually I think in my 5 or 6 years at Rainbow has really been the most exceptional student. This particular theme was something to do with animal conservation, or rather environmental conservation. So in this piece here, we went down to the abattoir down on Bugolobi Road. And this is the piece which she captured of a carcass. And I found it quite fascinating. This is by an old student called Letitia Wu, who was also another very inspiring student. And as you can see, this is an abstract piece with lots of vibrant colors. This is, in this particular case, this is oil on back cloth. And as you can see, the student really actually thought quite well about the results. And a pretty impressive piece of work.
By exposing children to creative experiences, we give them the gift of a rich and memorable childhood while laying the foundation for a lifetime of creative expressions.
Accessibility to good materials. Good materials, that's definitely one thing. Although I must say in Rainbow we're a bit lucky because the school does actually really provide some pretty good materials, and that's reflected in the sort of work that the children produce. Actually, one of the things we intend to do through this exhibition is to take art in Rainbow to another level. We're looking at developing modern art, because as much as we have a variety, I still think we're a little bit too much focused on two-dimensional work. So I'm thinking, looking at things like maybe video, video motion production. I'm looking at things like kinetic art. I'm looking at things like maybe producing magazines, something which is a little bit more, first of all, hands-on, and a little bit more modern.
Fabric, form, color, line, texture and seasons are fundamental requirements for fashion and style. Tonight on The Flair, we meet Ruthie Tina Chibirige, the director of Tina International School of Beauty, a trained designer, beauty therapist and hairdresser. The school, which is a first of its kind in Uganda, is aiming to raise the productivity of youth and adults in the community, at the same time improve the fashion industry in the country.
The purpose of starting this school was to train young people, men and women, who were left out by society, whom the society thought they were dropouts, school dropouts. If somebody could not do well in mathematics or geography or history, then they could think that, oh, this is, she cannot make it. So by starting the school, we give them skills. We give them skills in beauty therapy. We give them skills in hairdressing, skills in flower arrangement, interior designing, and the biggest is the fashion designing.
She narrates to us the process of what it takes to be able to make that shirt, dress, and anything that you have been admiring for so long.
They learn about different stitches. So when they go to using the machine to apply, they know that this kind of stitch I'm applying here is called this name. So from there they make a file, what we call a portfolio, and then they go to baby wear, whereby they do all children's wear from a 0-year-old baby to 11, 12 years. And then from there they move on to women clothes, everything about women, skirts, blouses, different designs, round skirt, straight, pleated. And from there then they move on to drafting. They do pattern cutting, and this is on paper, whereby now somebody sits down, they think of a fashion or a design, they create it on paper, as in sketch. They sketch it, then they print it as the would-be dress at the time of finishing. And then after sketching, they draft it, and then they cut the material exactly as what's on paper. So from there, they do menswear, and bridal wear is the last one.
The fundamentals of constructing garments starts with pattern and fabric selection, then the students start on the professional techniques of sewing and stitching the clothes together.
We use anything that we find, from paper to banana fiber, because with fashion designing is not limited to anything. So you can use whatever you find. With paper, we use it to create earrings and necklaces and all that. There is a way we use it. And with the materials, when it comes to stitching the actual dresses or trousers or anything, we can use from backcloth, mats, the mats which are already made, and then we cut them out and then make a garment. We use all the types of materials in the shops.
Since its inception in 1995, the school has trained a number of people who have excelled and made their mark with a specific trend in this burgeoning fashion industry in Uganda.
We've got several in town who are coming up, who are doing well. There is Daphne, she's specialized in Afrocentric designs, and she's located right opposite the school. Those people who know where the school is, that girl called Daphne, she's been designing for most of the stars in town, the singers and all that. We have Latif Kasumba went through here. He was talented, but then he also went through here, through the school, and completed his studies, and then at one time he was also an instructor in this school. There is one called Fatina. They are down on Kampala Road before Fidodido building. That's where their boutique is.
Ruthie adds that each student, even after just one study module, can be able to engage in the fashion industry and sustain themselves.
Right from week one, when somebody enrolls with us, they start with hand stitches. That's where they learn how to use hand needles and material. They get acquainted with that, so that if somebody does not get a job like a pattern maker or so, they can still go in a factory where they produce maybe mass designs, and they can still stitch on the buttons. They do the buttonholes. As much as we have the machines doing that, but still we want them to know how to use that by hand.
Fashion design is one of the careers selling fast. Ruthie tells us how it's important for the students to learn the basics as compared to fashion trends and the challenges faced.
We had so many people out there claiming to have gone through the school, not only through fashion designing department, but even other departments. So you find that they do things which are substandard, and you get calls from people. Oh, I've got a person here, she said she's trained with Tina School of Beauty, but she has done this kind of mess. So that's another challenge. We don't know how to will control all that, because most people these days it's trendy. Where did you learn this? Yes. Where did you go? I went to Tina. But there are so many other schools. So people lie that they have really done the courses in order to get some jobs, but then when they go out there, they mess up.
With all the vast experience in fashion and design, she tells us about people who lift her spirits up.
As in the fashion world, I'm inspired by Dorothy Perkins' designs. Her designs are always conservative, but trendy. They don't flatter. They don't. Whichever age somebody uses, whichever age uses her designs, they always fit right and they always look good.
There you have it. Next time you're thinking of adding some skills to your daytime job or vacation, fashion and style is definitely the way to go.
These days, the past few, like 8 months or so, long and African print has come back big time. Like before, like last year or 2 years ago, people were more into exposing their bodies, the so-called Kundi show. Even in Europe, they have gone back to to long gowns, ballroom gowns, because if you watch the awards, the Academy Awards and other functions the celebrities go to, you find that almost everybody is in a long dress, flaring, and some of them, okay, they show the back or too bare-chested, but the long dresses are now back on trend.
A distinctive character of modern-day fashion remains its functionality. Recently, the German embassy commemorated the German National Day by screening an Oscar award-winning movie, Lives of Others. A story from the heart of the East African regime is an intensely gripping thriller and moving love story.
Sie sind zu spät. Entschuldigen Sie, Genosshauptmann, ich bin in so eine Rotphase geraten, da kann man leicht mal 4 Minuten verlieren. Wissen Sie ja, wie das ist. Oh, die sind ja schon bei der Sache. Das gibt's ja gar nicht. Diese Künstler.
Set in the mid-1980s East Berlin, it is the story of a playwright who must decide what to do with his art, and the secret police were trying to decide if he is a threat.
Hauser hat 3-mal angerufen und ihm davon erzählt. Das ist jetzt sehr, sehr wichtig. Für meine Karriere und für deine Karriere.
Just before it was screened, we got to talk to the deputy head of mission German embassy, who told us what the movie is all about.
And this film is about life in the former eastern part of Germany, which I said was rather unfree. It's about an office of the secret police. They spied on everybody who was not loyal to the regime. And in this film, an office of the secret police is asked to spy on a playwright. But the reason why he gets this order is this playwright has a very nice girlfriend. And the Minister of Culture is somehow in love with this girlfriend. So he looks for a reason how to get rid of this man and how he could then be the new boyfriend of this nice and pretty woman.
Ich kann es mir nicht nehmen lassen, heute Abend noch auf das Wohl unserer Kulturschaffenden zu trinken.
The drama communicates the fear of loss of privacy, loss of enthusiasm in people's talents, and the fear of a watchful state to all human beings, no matter the country.
Is it good to be loyal to a regime which spies on everybody, which offers you a life which is not really free? Actually, the main character is loyal to the regime. He doesn't like how you lead your life in that country. He sees that a friend of his is mistreated and he commits suicide.
Ja? Georg? Ja, Werner.
Was ist denn?
Georg, es geht Jeska. Ist tot, hat sich gesagt, hängt.
Although it was released in March 2006, every piece of the movie, from the sets, costumes, acting, to writing, to the color palette, were executed at an incredibly high level, typical of the 1980s.
It's over 20 years ago and you hardly remember the way you were dressed. They put an effort to make it look real, and real for Eastern Germany because it was more difficult to get very trendy clothes. People always were dressed a bit different than in the West. Jeans was difficult to get because it was capitalistic, and that's why you didn't wear it.
Du weißt nicht, was gut für dich ist. Sei unbesorgt. Pass schon auf dich auf. Nächsten Donnerstag im Metropol. Wahnsinn.
Makes you think about what would I have done in such a situation? Would I have just obeyed, even so I don't agree what they're doing, or would I have been courageous and tried constructively to find another solution to help to change the situation? Would I have participated in these peaceful demonstrations? Would I have been a secret police officer? These questions you ask, and I think that's for everybody in your daily life. It's questions you should ask.
Dreimann?
Okay, wie versprochen. Paul wäre drüben.
Überhaupt keine Kontrolle?
Nein, keine besonderen Kontrollen. Nur das Übliche. So schlimm sind die Jungs da gar nicht. Also, er wäre drüben.
Ja, dann danke ich Ihnen vielmals, dass Sie das für uns gemacht haben.
Ach, keine Ursache. Die Gefahr war nun wirklich nicht so groß.
Ja, das stimmt auch wieder.
Okay.
Ja, gut, dann bis bald. Vielen Dank.
Tschö.
Bob Marley is to Jamaica as Lucky Dube is to Africa. On October 18, 2007, Lucky Dube was killed in the Johannesburg suburb of Rostenville. Police reports suggest that the musician was shot dead by carjackers. Tonight, we remember this son of Africa and pay tribute to him and the legacy that he leaves behind. He was born on the 3rd day of August 1964. His parents separated before his birth and he was raised by his mother, who named him Lucky Dube because she considered his birth fortunate after a number of failed pregnancies. Lucky Dube spent much of his childhood with his grandmother, and in a 1999 interview, he described his grandmother as his greatest love, who multiplied many things to bring up this responsible individual. As a child, Dube worked as a gardener but later joined a choir with some friends, formed his first musical ensemble called the Skyway Band. Although Dube was still in school, the band recorded material in Johannesburg during his school holidays. All subsequent albums were recorded as Lucky Dube. By this time, Dube began to note that fans were responding positively to some reggae songs he played during live concerts. Drawing his inspiration from Jimmy Cliff and Peter Tosh, he felt the socio-political messages associated with Jamaican reggae were relevant to a South African audience in an institutionally racist society. He decided to try reggae and in 1984 released the mini-album Rastas Never Die. Keen to suppress anti-apartheid activism, the regime banned the album in 1985. However, he was not discouraged and continued to perform the reggae tracks live and wrote and produced a second reggae album. Dube continued to release commercially successful albums, which saw him win awards both in Africa and beyond. In addition to performing music, Dube was a sometime actor, appearing in feature films such as Voice in the Dark, Getting Lucky, and Lucky Strikes. Lucky Dube is survived by his wife Zanele and his 7 children. He is gone, but his presence will always be in our midst for years. May his soul rest in peace. That is the end of the Art and Design show today. For comments and suggestions, do email us at artanddesign@ntvuganda.co.ug. Until next week, nice viewing.
This is NTV.
running battles in the city
as youths from Kampala Central stormed City Hall demanding immediate disbursement of the youth fund.
Tonight, all is set for tomorrow's budget speech to be delivered at the Serena Conference Center by Finance Minister Maria Chiwanuka.
Of course, NTV is all set to bring you live every detail of that annual event from tomorrow afternoon, so be sure to tune in.
Meanwhile, ahead of the budget tonight, right after this bulletin, be sure to join our colleague Charles Boji and his guests for a special pre-budget talk show.
Good evening and a warm welcome to NTV Tonight. Let's now take a look at the rest of tonight's headlines. Former Permanent Secretary on the spot as trial of 3 former ministers over use of Gavi funds continues.
Voting day in Ishaka municipality. The polling exercise takes off with minimal incidents.
And life in a failed state. Tonight we connect you with the Somali capital, Mogadishu. Good evening and thank you for joining us here on NTV Tonight. I am Faith Ariho.
And I am Gabriel Epenu. Now tomorrow is budget day, when we expect the government to lay out its revenue and expenditure priorities for the next 1 year.
Of course, it will affect each and every one of us in Uganda, and that's why on our NTV poll tonight, we seek to engage you on the budget by asking,
what do you think should be the priority for the government in the 2012-2013 budget? What do you think should be the priority for the government in the 2012-2013 budget?
Well, to have your say, text 8778 followed by a yes and no as well as your name and where you're texting from, and we shall be reading some of your comments during tonight's newscast as well as bring you the final poll result tonight.
Okay, now counting is continuing late into the night in the Bushenyi Ishaka municipality by-elections, with Forum for Democratic Change's Odo Tayebwa leading NRM's Nasser Basajabalaba so far.
Voting kicked off at 7 a.m. and ended at 5:30 p.m. with counting of the results kicking off immediately after closing time.
Well, the exercise is being conducted at the district headquarters. Julia Senkandwa reports.
So far, in the 25 polling stations that have forwarded in their results at the Tarit Center, Taremo has 5,122 votes against the Basajalaba's 4,203 votes. This means that Odo is leading with a difference of 919 votes. 8 polling stations are yet to bring in their results. 4 candidates contested for the municipality parliamentary seat. Jubilating FDC supporters are already celebrating for the preliminary results. Earlier in the day, police had to intervene in following accusation by FDC supporters, alleging that there was a lady who was carrying pre-ticked ballot papers. And for this man who belongs to FDC camp, is now nursing wounds after allegedly being attacked by NRM supporters.
We met a group of people with sticks. By the time as I was trying to enter into the vehicle, these people, one of them said, "You beat the vehicle and beat the owner of the vehicle and that one whom he has."
Kyamunonyeza kubanga bagamba nti yabadde asomba abantu okubaleta mu wano municipality okulonda oba okuleta fujo.
The eventual winners is expected to be announced later in the night by the returning officer Barbara Mulimira. Julius Senkandwa, NTV.
A gunfire and tear gas today rocked central Kampala as anti-riot police swung into action to block a group of youth who were protesting the delay in disbursement of the youth fund. The group had intended to deliver a petition to KCCA Executive Director Jennifer Musisi but was blocked along the way. KCCA received 16.5 billion shillings out of the 44.5 billion allocated to the youth in last year's budget to distribute to unemployed youth groups. So far, only 3.3 billion has been dispersed to youth groups to help in self-help projects. Florence Naluyimba reports.
Recently, when the president was making his speech in parliament, he never mentioned anything about the youth.
Each year, millions of people are graduating and there are no jobs. On top of that, they have put their youth fund and it's not accessible.
So if it is not released today, if we don't demand it today, which will never be.
Placards raised, they met at Bat Valley to discuss matters pertaining to their promised funds with the guidance of Kampala District MP Mohamed Nsereko. But before the meeting could take place, police told them to disperse and they decided to march in a procession to City Hall to demand their share. Along the way, they got into a heated exchange with the police who wanted to arrest their chairman, Tony Batenda. The procession continued and run and walk they did, with interrupted police appeal to stop, all falling on deaf ears. When the police chase became too much, the youths opted to sit. And as they went along Bombo Road, the crowd kept swelling. Nearing Watoto Church, no sooner did these ladies tirade about the youth fund stop than the first tear gas canister was lobbed. Police had had enough. After all was calm and some were taken by police, they later reconvened at KCCA grounds where police were already lying in wait under commandership of Kampala District Police Commander James Ruhweza, later joined by Kampala Metropolitan Police Commander Andrew Kawesi. They were barred from entering City Hall and their noise disrupted council meetings, drawing Mayor Lukwago to the closed gate. It is then that Kampala District MP Mohamed Nsereko made an appearance to intervene, which only fueled the chaos. In a struggle, one young man was injured and the youths nearly assaulted Police Commander Ruhweza. In the meantime, some attempted to enter City Hall by all means, while others were armed to tear the gate down. It is then that the police voted them out. Later, the Kampala District Mayor was let in to have peaceful talks with other leaders. It was lunchtime, time for the police officers to have their lunch. This did not, however, happen as the angry and hungry youths took to the food brought for the police officers, saying this was part of their money. The youth are protesting the delay in remittance of more than 16 billion allocated to KCCA to the youth to help in self-help projects. Florence Nalimba, NTV.
Now next tonight, prosecution witness Mohamed Kezala, who was the permanent secretary, Ministry of Health at the time Uganda got a grant of Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, has today appeared before the Anti-Corruption Court. Kezala failed to pin the 3 former health ministers charged with the mismanagement of the funds, saying there were no internal audit query by the time he had left office regarding the Gavi funds. He instead accepted to take responsibility because he was the principal because he was the principal, and he instead accepted to take responsibility because he was the principal signatory to the accounts.
Mohamed Kezala fell short of telling court that the 3 ministers influenced his decision to sanction the release of Gavi funds. Kezala claims that he acted on a loose minute from the then Minister of Health, Major General Jim Muhwezi. But when the defense lawyers put him to task to explain his mandate as stipulated in the Constitution, he admitted that he was the accounting officer and he had powers to turn down the request from the minister. This confession left him with no option but to accept responsibility. He told court that the three ministers were not accountable, neither did they abuse their offices or even steal the funds. His testimony was no different from that of the then Undersecretary Jethro Mugume. This leaves the prosecution with three more witnesses who will testify tomorrow. Hilary Yesiga, NTV.
The Parliamentary Natural Resources Committee proposal to have a life sentence or even the death penalty imposed for corrupt public officials has been greeted with mixed feelings. While some members of Parliament support the proposal, some are of the view that confiscation of their property that can be sold to recover the stolen monies would be a better option. As Agnes Nandutu reports,
lawmakers on the Parliamentary Natural
view that the legislature should fight corruption by being we apologize for the mishap there. Well, Agnes Nandutu says analysts are also of the view that the legislature should fight corruption by being part of all government dealings to promote transparency.
Lawmakers on the Parliamentary Natural Resources Committee, who are in the process of scrutinizing the Petroleum Exploration, Development and Production Bill 2012, yesterday proposed a life sentence or even death penalty to deter people from corrupt tendencies in the oil sector. They also want to introduce a proposal for Parliament to amend all the corruption-related laws for the penalty to apply across all government sectors. To some MPs and analysts, it is the only way corrupt officials and ill-intentioned investors can be deterred from robbing Uganda's taxpayers. But they warn that in order to beef up the penalties and avoid addressing post-mortems, Parliament's oversight work has to be strengthened.
A lot of money is lost through corruption, through embezzlement. Let us have stringent measures, either a life sentence in Luzira prison or somebody loses one's life. That's when others will know it's a no-go area.
If this comes on the floor, definitely I'll support it, because on issues of corruption, there is no way we can fight corruption unless we come up with very serious punishments to the corrupt. Probably maybe others will get scared.
The Parliament needs just to set those checks and balances to make sure that the negotiation process is transparent. But the one of looking at penalty for omission or commission of offense, you are now dealing with the post-mortem, which may not be very helpful to the taxpayer.
Whereas most lawmakers support deterrent penalties, they think it is more profitable to confiscate and sell properties of the corrupt, other than wasting resources on keeping people in prisons for the rest of their lives.
I think we need to think of mechanisms that can help us, one, to make sure that we stop this corruption before it happens. Two, if it happens, we have mechanisms that can make sure that we recover the money.
We would propose to declare such individuals bankrupt. The declaration of somebody bankrupt carries with it depossession of all the assets that they have accrued, including those assets which are being utilized by their families.
What maybe my colleagues are trying to do is to add on that on top of life imprisonment and death, this person's property should also be attached, such that even those who remain behind do not benefit from such bad money.
These proposals have been committed to the Parliament Legal Department for scrutiny, but it's now upon lawmakers to ensure that deterrent penalties are put in place for government implementation to save the 8 trillion shillings that end up in the pockets of individuals annually. Agnes Nandutu, NTV, Parliament.
You're watching NTV Tonight. We'll go for a short break right now, but here's a peek at what you can expect when we return. Ahead of tomorrow's budget, we sample some of the expectations from key stakeholders.
And Uganda Cranes head coach Bobby Williamson says he is determined to register a result against Congo-Brazzaville this weekend. NTV Tonight continues after this short break. See you shortly.
NTV. This is 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 NTV.
Welcome back. We start with a reminder of our NTV poll question for tonight and some of your responses. We asked, what do you think should be the priority for the government in the 2012-2013 budget? What do you think should be government's priority in the 2012-2013 budget to be read tomorrow?
To have your say, text 8778, then your comment and followed by your name and where you are texting from. Let's now take a look at some of your comments so far.
Okay, Nathan Were in Hoima, you say focus should be placed on value addition to guarantee better prices for smallholder farmers and export of finished products as opposed to raw materials.
And Mutunji Incredible Ronald says focus should be on how to curb inflation through even distribution of resource. Ugandan currency is valueless.
Okay, keep those comments coming. We shall read some more at the end of tonight's bulletin.
Well, moving on, Parliament is seeking for oversight powers in the management of the oil sector in Uganda.
Our lawmakers on the Natural Resources Committee currently scrutinizing the oil bills are pushing for amendments so that Parliament gets involved in the approval of the Oil Authority Board members and also play their oversight role.
The current bill had left out Parliament from the oversight responsibility as per the 1995 Constitution.
Well, the committee has also refused to include provisions in the Oil Exploration Development and Production Bill that would grant Ugandans an opportunity to own shares in the oil companies.
The Constitution empowers members of Parliament who are people's representatives to play their oversight responsibility by assessing and evaluating activities of government. And all the laws enacted after the 1995 Constitution must be in conformity with the provisions of the Supreme Law. However, the proposed Oil Exploration, Development and Production Bill is silent about Parliament's role in the sector. Now the lawmakers sitting on the Natural Resources Committee who are scrutinizing the oil bills are pushing for amendments to provide for oversight powers to Parliament in the managing the sector. The MPs want the President to take the role of appointing board of members of the National Oil Authority, who they say must be vetted by Parliament.
It is a proposal that the Minister appoints the board. There are views that the President should appoint the the Petroleum Authority Board with the approval of Parliament. So somehow, somewhere, Parliament should actually be involved. The argument of the committee is that there is no, in any way, role of Parliament mentioned at all, explicitly.
The bill in its current form empowers the minister in charge of the oil sector with the majority of the powers. They say trimming the minister's powers will provide checks and balances as to avoid any further abuse of the sector.
We must remove 74 clause 3 because there is a problem and a danger that it might actually cause someone losing his or her head.
Exactly.
So
being removed from society.
Yeah, really in essence to leave no room for abuse of office.
The MPs have also refused to include provisions in the Oil Exploration, Development and Production Bill that grants Ugandans an opportunity to own shares in the oil company. They want the oil company be fully owned by the government of Uganda as for now.
Therefore, if this resource is being held in trust of the people of Uganda, therefore, a business company that is going to manage the resource on behalf of the people of Uganda, we should be able to actually have the state own 100% shares in the first place.
The committee had received proposals to allow Ugandans buy shares in the national oil company. Jingo Francis, NTV Parliament.
Now, the common perception when someone mentions Somalia is years of war, conflict and instability with men, women and children seeking refuge in other nations and endless drought. And now to add to the list, the Al-Shabaab. Mogadishu, the Somali capital, is testimony to most of this, a city broken down, torn, littered with soldiers trying to salvage the nation and protect what is left of it. Well, Josephine Karungi was recently there and brings us the story of a city that is yet to start picking up the pieces.
Almost everything in Mogadishu has a story of its own. Hours of scouting will show you that there are only countable houses with no gunshot holes, and many have fallen apart with the fighting. Our tour of the city begins with Mogadishu Stadium, which used to be the headquarters for Al-Shabaab. In August 2011, the African Union forces took over the stadium. A sign that the Al-Shabaab once had a place here is the metallic plate that they used to test their guns.
So they would shoot at it, and whichever gun penetrated it, that would be used against our armored cars.
Away from the stadium, a sad sight is the Uruba Hotel. Once Somalia's premier hotel, it now lies in ruins. The hotel once was a favored spot for dignitaries and wealthy tourists, mostly because of its beautiful seaside location. It is now no more, shattered by the constant wars that have plagued Somalia. Somalia has a staggering 3,000 kilometers of a coastline to offer, the longest on the continent. However, with that much sea space, piracy has become a word triggered by the very mention of Somalia. And while the international community has always favored fighting the pirates on the waters, the Uganda contingent commander Paul Lokech believes this is the wrong approach.
You need to have law and order on the land, because the pirates leave the land and then they go to the waters. Pacify Somalia. Let there be law and order. There will be no piracy.
While the African Union peacekeeping forces continue with their fight for peace, they are also looking at the future for Somalia through a training school for Somalis to receive military training. This project is expected to cost over $3.2 million. It is hoped that projects like this can keep the youth occupied and employed so that the charms of Al-Shabaab do not easily distract them.
You're giving alternative sources of income. You're giving an occupation to the youth. Some money, some income. They can look after themselves, they can look after their needs, and we think that is very critical.
Somalia's parliament also lies in ruins, but reconstruction plans are in place. There is a roadmap process on how to smoothly bring to a close the transition of federal government by August this year. Election of a president is expected to take place on the 20th of August and pave way for another interim government, which will lead to a referendum for proper elections. From the top of the Somali parliament, you have a great view of most of Mogadishu. The Somali parliament has 550 members. They hope to cut down that number by half to 225. The question now is, how is that going to be done?
Those who are in the current transitional federal parliament will stand again for the new positions. Those who pass, it will be okay. Those who fail will look for other positions.
Questions have been raised as to whether or not the state in its current form remains too fragile to be planning an election. It may be for an interim government, but it is difficult to assess when a struggling state can identify the correct time to get back up and start rebuilding. But there is a lot of optimism for the plans that lie ahead.
The Somalians really love their home. That's one thing I've realized. Two, the Somalians are very enterprising. If you look at the rate in which they are reconstructing that town, it's at a faster pace. So they really love their country. But what they wanted was somebody to guarantee them peace.
While a lot of land is covered in sand, there is some fertile ground, and these people are capitalizing on that by growing their own food.
Abele is a food basket for Somalia, the whole of Somalia. The terrain looks Ugandan. It's a food basket for Mogadishu. All the food that goes to Mogadishu comes from this area.
But there is a constant threat that prevails, the fact that some civilians own guns. The people can never really be sure who is a friend and who isn't, or even when that friend will turn their gun on them.
We still have positive armed warlords within these areas we have liberated. And we are dealing with Al-Shabaab. Once we have completed dealing with Al-Shabaab, we are going to disarm these warlords.
And as it has been said before, Somalia can be reborn as a country with both progress and prosperity. For all the destruction the shattered country has faced, it has the resilience and natural resources to pick up the pieces and make a home for its people.
African problems can only be solved by the Africans.
While the world believes the people of Somalia never embrace moments to let loose in order to forget the threat and leave, this is not always the case. However, even then there is a danger in getting too close, as you never know what danger even a little crowd can attract. And while the adults who have been miserable for a long time have not yet learned how to smile under this seemingly newfound freedom, the children still have room for a new friend. Josephine Karunji, NTV.
Josephine Karunji there connecting us to Mogadishu, Somalia's capital, though which lies in ruins, is teeming with a lot of potential. And join me later for NTV Business after this short break as we continue our special budget analysis reports, so do stay with us.
Any corrupt person who embezzles money in a big numbers, big volumes, he causes genocide, causes the stunting of children, all these children who die out of lack of medicine in hospitals, people who cannot access facilities, all the bad roads that even cause accidents, all these problems, when you look at the cumulative effect of corruption, they have a heavy toll on the deaths of Ugandans. Now, what price can you give?
This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV.
Hello and welcome to NTV Business. Now, first tonight, the budget for the financial year 2012-2013, of course, will be read tomorrow by the Finance Minister, Maria Chiwanuka. So tonight in the NTV Business, we sample some of the expectations from key stakeholders of the Ugandan economy.
Tomorrow, the budget for the 2012-13 financial year will be read. As you might suspect, the usual pronouncement for prioritizing infrastructure will not miss. But this time round, some, while acknowledging infrastructure as important, are approaching this issue with a pinch of salt.
So number one, infrastructure. If everybody talks infrastructure for Uganda for the next 5 years, it will help us.
I support the president and I will continue to support him in parliament to make sure that we put money in energy, in infrastructure, in the railway. We've talked so much about the railway. It's my dream and desire to see us going forward.
We must avoid a situation where you find that you are pushing to build a road even where there's no productivity. Isn't it? Roads are very good. Investing in infrastructure is good for the economy, but is it the only priority?
What will infrastructure do when other factors of productivity are not present? For instance, food. Might this be perhaps tackled together? The budget deficit is expected to rise above 5% of GDP going forward, raising the question of funding, for instance, this infrastructure.
To the extent that the private sector becomes a significant player in trying to ensure that the funding associated or required for infrastructure investment takes place.
I think up to now, it has not been very clear policy-wise that governments can use these instruments to borrow. Financing through the bond market.
The only legitimate way government can, for instance, use NSSF money at a fee is by issuing an infrastructure bond. Then, of course, agriculture is key to help stem the supply side pressure on inflation.
We generally expect to see policies that stimulate GDP growth, because that is what eventually curbs inflation.
So we expect that as the inflation continues to be tamed, we should see the revival of economic activity, because then the bank rate will be reduced and interest rates will be reduced.
And from the manufacturers, one of their issues is income tax, or pay as you earn.
Unfortunately, the threshold is too low, 130,000, 35,000, call it 140,000. Now if you start, deducting monies on a person getting 140,000 for sure, when will you ever expect him to buy something tangible? So we are proposing that it should be upgraded or pushed up to at least 250,000. That will give them a bigger gap to have a better purchasing power. And the more they buy, the more we shall be in position to pay more taxes.
The risk of inflation remains, and yet the demand for stimulation of growth seems a must.
But that's how economic dynamics play out. And I think authorities will have to assess carefully on where they lean most.
Whatever expenditure we are going to approve as members of parliament, the question should be, what will it produce? What will it produce?
Some views there on the expectations from policymakers and stakeholders ahead of tomorrow's reading of the 2012-2013 budget. Now, a quick update in the financial markets. The shilling has continued to trade in a narrow range against the dollar, making some slight gains as well. And finally, in NTV Business for tonight, although the local financial industry has managed to grow over the years, the anticipated oil economy still portends challenges. A cross-section of players cite inadequate skilled human resource and insufficient liquidity as major challenges in the industry's drive to tap into this nascent sector. Raina John has more.
Most of the commercial banks operating in the country have managed to realize growth, with the industry players pointing out that the market turnover is above 5 trillion shillings today. However, it's emerging that prospects associated with the new oil and gas sector in Uganda would in a way pose challenges to the industry.
From a banking perspective, of course, it means that the banking industry needs to develop its expertise in providing the type of support that industry requires. And because they're typically very capital intensive, we need to, as economies, be able to attract external capital to support us.
The managing director for NIC Bank, that has now opened shop in Uganda, was speaking here in Kampala. The financial institution with a historical footprint in Kenya, as the National Industry and Credit Bank, has suggested that the line of credit from a French agency to support enterprise growth in the community.
One challenge that one sees within the region is more a mental challenge, whereby we all need to start looking at East Africa as borderless. So even as we provide our products and services and discuss with our customers, we need to be able to talk to a customer in Fort Portal, Kabale or Gulu, the same way we'll be speaking to someone in Kisumu, Nairobi or Mombasa. And we should be able to provide products and services that are similar and identical.
Reina Urgin, NTV Business.
And that winds up NTV Business for tonight. But as we continue to build up to tomorrow's budget, join Charles Boji and his guests straight after tonight's newscast for a special pre-budget talk show.
This is NTV. 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 This is NTV.
NTV Sports with Guinness.
Good evening and welcome to NTV Sport. Now we begin with football tonight, and Uganda Cranes head coach Bobby Williamson says he is as determined as ever to register a result against Congo-Brazzaville in their 2013 Africa Cup of Nations return leg to be played at Nambole in Kampala this weekend. The team went through drills with the captain Andy Mwesigwa on the sidelines on a light practice as he fully recovered from injury. Alfred Odong reports.
Uganda Cranes will miss out on the services of Martin Mutumba, who was flown back to his club this morning following an injury sustained during the Senegal game over the weekend. They lost to Congo-Brazzaville in the first leg of the knockout phase away, but the Cranes head coach Bob Williamson believes the Cranes have what it takes to advance to the next stage.
But I expect that. I don't expect everybody to play in their top form. If they do, that's fantastic. But as I said, I'm a coach. I'll analyse the game as it goes on, and I'll make changes accordingly to hopefully disrupt the opposition. And that's what we've had to do in the previous two games. We've been behind in both these games. We can't afford to do that on Saturday. Obviously, we want to keep a clean sheet.
The team had their training session at Nambole with their captain Ande Mwesiga having a light ball workout on the sidelines as he recovers from an injury. The tickets for stands will go for 10,000 shillings, while those for VIP are for 30,000 shillings only.
Their tickets at Kobil, their tickets at other City Oil and other petrol stations.
Uganda Cranes last played in the Africa Cup of Nations final in 1978, and now the reigning Sekafa champions are in a campaign to return to the continental meet to be hosted by South Africa next year. Uganda Cranes go for Saturday's game against Congo Brazzaville trailing by 3-1. They need to win by 2-0 to make to the next stage of this competition. Alfred Odong, NTV Sport.
Meanwhile, 2012 National Schools Ball Games hosts Mbale Secondary School extended their winning streak in the netball competition to 2 games after beating Sironko Progressive on day 2 of the championship. In volleyball, Chinawa Kawempe beat Iganga SS by 2-0 in the girls category as boys defending championships. St. Mary's Kitende beat Chamhunga to stay on course to retaining the title.
Mbale Secondary School made good use of the home grounds in the ongoing National Schools Ball Games and beat Sironko Progressive by 22-10 goals in the netball competitions. The hosts beat Ibuje by 15-3 last evening in the opening games of the championship. Defending champions St. Mary's College Tende beat St. Edward's Secondary School by 49-4 goals as Gombe Secondary School walloped home side Mbale Progressive by 32-13. Chibuli beat Mbale's Oxford 25-7 as Budo SS whooped Kamuli Girls 51-2. In girls volleyball, Chinawa Kawempe beat Iganga Secondary School by 2-0 before St. Bridget and Trust High posted the same results against Mbalala's St. Teresa and Chizoba respectively. Chitende beat Chamuhonga 2-0 in boys volleyball as Muntuyela beat St. Paul by the same margin.
These games are organized mainly, one, to identify talent among our youngsters and also to give our opportunity to our youngsters to discover their own talent. Not only that, one is educative. When they gather here, they learn from one another, they interact, and in that case they foster spirit of nationalism and patriotism. Start like this.
Now, Agago beat 88 districts to the inaugural National Kids Athletics Championships. In Bara, officials have urged the government and potential sponsors to offer the necessary support for the youngsters' talents to be further developed. Agago managed to amass 38,403 points to emerge overall winners. Lamwo came second with a total of 369 points, while Gulu Municipality managed 359,000 points to come third. District sports officials at the award ceremony at Nambole called for more training and facilitation to enable them to meet the demands of preparing athletes for both regional and global events. Excelling athletes received trophies, medals, certificates, and scholastic materials from UNICEF to encourage the children to exploit their full potential. On to Euro 2012 now. Poland produced a stirring performance in Warsaw to hold Russia to a draw and strengthen their hopes of qualifying for the knockout stages. And Czech Republic's Euro 2012 campaign came alive thanks to 2 goals in the first 6 minutes against 2004 champions Greece.
Błaszczykowski. What a fantastic goal! Poland are level. And it's the skipper, Jakub Błaszczykowski.
Poland came from behind in the second half and Captain Jacob scored an equalizer. Russia had taken the lead after 37 minutes when Alan Zagawev turned in an Andrei Ashavin's free kick.
Shavin to try and reach, and he's done just that, and Russia have gone in front.
The result leaves Group A wide open, with all 4 teams still mathematically able to qualify for the quarterfinals after a night of high drama in the Polish capital. And in the second game of the group, Peter Jarecki scored the opener and handed the Czech Republic an early lead.
The Greeks who had to reorganize their defense coming into the match because of injury and suspension were punished again 3 minutes later. Greece had a goal ruled out for offside before Fanis Gekas capitalized on a Peter Cech's mistake after the break. Tonight, action returns in the group of death.
And that winds up NTV Sport for tonight. Thank you for watching.
Are you ready to drink at the table of men?
Let's now take a look at Thursday's weather forecast.
Okay, let's now take you back to tonight's NTV poll. We asked you, what do you think should be the priority for the government in the 2012-2013 budget? Let's now read some more of your comments. Asimwe Julie, you say, I think health should be given priority, taking into account the outbreak of hepatitis B and nodding disease. Well, this means the health sector should be priority, followed by youth, the youth fund, to fight unemployment among the youth and also curb crime among them, then agriculture, education and roads.
Well, Vitas from Nansana here says we are badly off. Every sector in the economy is a priority in one way or the other, and all the sectors are interdependent of the other.
Brian Oluka, you say salaries for teachers should be key because they educate the nation.
And Chobe Sarah here says electricity, roads, health and agriculture.
Well, thank you so much for all of your comments tonight. We appreciate them. Please do participate in tomorrow's NTV poll, which will be totally different, I believe. Just for a quick update from Bushenyi in the Ishaka municipality by-election, though, the latest results are in, and the apparent winner in that election is FDC's Odo Tayebwa, who has polled 7,048 votes, as opposed to NRM's Nasa Basajjabalaba, who managed 5,668 votes. That is the final result from the returning officer in the Ishaka municipality by-election.
Well, thank you so much for watching. I am Faith Eriho.
And I am Gabriel Epenu. Please stay tuned.